Hey guys, I'm Karthik, and today I'm going to be going through an SAT reading passage with you guys. So, before we start, I'm going to talk about how I actually developed better analysis skills. So, when I was working with a tutor trying to increase my SAT reading score, one thing that he did was he went through the passages with me, right? And during our sessions, he would read out the entire passage, or he'd give me time to read out the passage, but then he'd talk about all the details that he specifically remembered. And we would go through the questions together and just discuss like why one question would be right and why all the other answers were wrong and what specific detail makes the other answers incorrect. And that was extremely helpful for helping me analyze. So, one thing that I think is important is you remove the factor of time, right? I'm not going to be following the time limit when doing this analysis because I think it's really important that I explain every detail and exactly what I'm thinking. So, if you want to focus on actually getting better at the reading test, then you have to get rid of speed as a limitation in your mind, right? The real limitation is how accurate you are, right? If you're better at something, you will be faster at it. So our goal should be to get good at analysis. And if we get good at analysis, the speed comes with just us being more masterful in it. So, how do you actually make this video useful? I'm going to put the passages on the next two slides, but if you actually want to go through it with me, I recommend opening in a new tab. I'll have the link in the description of the exact passage. It's practice test 9 and the first passage, first 10 questions. And I think that if you really want to get value out of this video, you should really keep in mind what are the differences between what I thought and what you thought, and keep that in mind as like a specific metric for, I guess, how well you're doing in the passage, right? What are the things that I'm thinking that you haven't thought about? And take note of those and try to figure out where in the passage I got that idea from. And if you can do that, you're genuinely increasing your ability to analyze. Right, so let's get into it. This is the first slide. You can just pause the video. I'm not going to keep this up for 2 minutes. And the second one. All right, so here we go. If you've seen my other reading SAT videos, I actually recommend that you don't start with the summary of the passage and main theme of the passage questions. So this is why I'm actually going to start on question 3. So throughout the passage, the narrator is portrayed as someone reserved around unfamiliar people. The first thing I noticed when I read that is who are the unfamiliar people? The people that she meets is literally her family, and I get they're the only people that are kind of unfamiliar are the customers that I think are mentioned before, and the character doesn't even meet the customers. So how could she be reserved around unfamiliar people? We don't even know that. Attuned to her immediate soundings. I really like this one. There's so many instances of details about everything, and I think she says that she wants to make someone envious. Right on line 22, she talks about how she wants to identify every single detail so she could make someone else envy. And sympathetic to the needs of others. Again, there isn't really specific details about her being sympathetic, anxious about her responsibilities. I don't think there's even a mention of her explicit responsibilities or how she's anxious at all about them. So I'm definitely going to go with B here. That's the only one that really I'm really strong about because there's obviously so many details not only listed, but it's listed that she wants to be, I guess, attuned to her surroundings. Question 4. It can be most reasonably inferred from the passage that old widow Lau's reluctance to stay for tea is feigned because she's not genuinely firm in her resolve. Yeah, that second part is especially true, right? She's like not really firm in her wanting to leave. It's almost like she's being nice and pretending to oh, please don't do that for me, but then at the end of the day just accepting whatever, I guess, gift is given. Inconsiderate because her family has been planning her visit. I don't think there's any mention of her family planning her visit, so I just think that's automatically wrong, even if it is considered inconsiderate. Appropriate because the shop is unusually busy. That's definitely not true. The shop is not busy. Ill-advised because she's exhausted from the journey. The journey? What journey? There wasn't even a journey mentioned prior to this. Yeah, I don't think there's any mention of a journey. So feigned because she's not generally firm in her resolve. See, even though I was working on an SAT passage similar to this and a similar type question, and the first word, right, could potentially be a word that you don't know. And in that case, like the secondary detail is so essential to figuring out. So literally from the secondary detail, you can figure out what the right answer is in this question. So I'm going with A, obviously. Which answer choice provides the evidence? Okay, so for the evidence, I think the only part that really talks about that is, I specifically was talking about the old widow not wanting to leave, but then eventually like folding and deciding to sit down. And that's probably the only one. So I'm going to figure out where that is. Yeah, so line 15, old widow Lau refused their invitation 3 times, exclaiming that my father and uncles must be too busy for visitors. She made weak efforts to leave. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, lines 15 to 18. But let's just quickly go over the other ones. At last was done haggling with the driver and stepped inside the father's shop. Right, that just talks about getting into the store and the details of the store. That doesn't really provide anything. And then the next one, and he customers, so lines 11. I called his name in a shy voice. He squinted at me and then left and announced our arrival to little uncle, who apologized many times for not rushing over sooner to greet us. Okay, so that just, I don't really see any detail that specifically points to her not being firm in her resolve. In the end, 19 to 21. On the fourth instance, we finally sat. Little uncle brought us. Uh, yeah, okay, so that one, she's saying that she specifically sat down, but the question 4 is more about her reluctance, right? It's a more about, yeah, literally reluctance to stay for tea. It's more about her not wanting to go, and it's not about her staying. So I'm definitely going with C here. Okay, the narrator indicates that the contrast between her ink making studio at Immortal Heart Village and her family's ink shop is that. Okay, so specifically, let me look at that passage. So line 30, I believe. Yeah, they look so much nicer than they had in the ink making studio at Immortal Heart Village. And a little bit before that, the glass was very shiny and not one pane was broken. Within those glass cases were our silk wrapped boxes, all of our hard work, or all our hard work. Yeah, it's mainly about the detail that she's noticing the details of the eloquence of how everything is displayed. So A displays the family's ink more impressively. Yeah, I'm definitely like leaning towards that one. Conveniently located for the public. There's literally no mention of convenience location. You just be assuming that. Provides greater individual attention to customers. I guess they provide attention to customers, but there's no there we don't really know what attention to customers is at Immortal Heart Village, so we can't really say. Offers a larger space. Again, we don't know anything about Immortal Heart Village's ink making studio, so we can't assume any details there except for the fact that they looked so much nicer, right? So nicer, displaying more impressively. That's the only thing I feel confident about here. So I'm going to go with A. All right, so next question. Based on the artistic philosophy expressed in the fourth paragraph, lines 46 to 59, it is reasonable to infer that Precious Auntie would consider a hastily written first draft of a story to be emotionally raw or powerful. I believe she specifically says that, like, you need to be able to think and you shouldn't do anything fast, and anything fast is quick and cheap, but anything like slow and actually thought out is meaningful. So I think anything fast, so hastily, right, anything fast she's going to have negative ideas about. So emotionally raw and powerful, I doubt she'll say that. mm, Creatively satisfying for the author, I don't think she says anything about the author. She says everything about the work itself. She doesn't say anything about the artist, right? Essentially worthless. Yeah, that's the negative thing that I was looking for. Inappropriately analytical for a piece of art. Okay, so that one's like, I guess, somewhat negative, but her where does Precious Auntie's ideas ever talk about something being analytical? Yeah, I don't think she says anything about something being inappropriate, like too analytical or not in the right scenario. So I'm guessing C. Yeah, I'm actually very confident about C. I don't think A or B is something that she would go for. It's definitely not emotionally raw or powerful because she doesn't really mention that something quick has that capability and doesn't, and the author isn't really cared for. It's more the art. So A and B are kind of eliminated and D is obviously eliminated. So I'll go with C. Which answer choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Okay, so let's try to find something specific here. Not even looking at what the lines are, but what specifically mentions like speed. Okay, so she says you can never be an artist if your work comes without effort, right? But that's not talking about speed. That is a problem of modern ink from a bottle. You do not have to think, right? That I think that's the most important part. You do not have to think, but still that doesn't reference speed. You simply write what is swimming on the top of your brain. Yeah, that line mentions speed, right? You're just doing the first thing that comes to your head, and at the top is nothing but pond scum, yada yada, all negative things, right? So I think that's the only one that directly references speed. I don't think I even have to go through the other ones. The only thing that talks about anything doing with speed and worthlessness is that line. And let's see the answer choices. So that would be 52. Yeah, 52, you simply spawn. Yeah, that's the one I'm going for, C. Okay, as used in line 59 matches most nearly means. So if you see in my other video, you know what I talk about. I talk about reading it first and then seeing what you think, right? So read the entire line first. Don't look at the answer choices and see what you actually think it means. You push and you ask yourself, what are my intentions? What is in my heart that matches my mind? Let's read a little bit before then. But when you push an ink stick along an ink stone, you take the first step to cleansing your mind and your heart. You push and you ask yourself, what are my intentions? What is it in my heart that matches my mind? Okay, so she talks about what is the first thing you do in clearing your mind of what she refers to as pond scum and your heart, right? You push and you ask yourself, what are my intentions? What is in my heart that matches my mind? So I'm thinking, what is in my heart that connects to my mind? What is in my heart that relates to my mind? What is similar in between them? Okay, so competes against, no, that definitely not, right? Corresponds with, yeah, so matches, yeah, literally the word is matches, but like what is similar corresponds with, that's what I'm thinking. Runs counter to. So that's obviously not it, but even like one more way you could check it out is competes against and runs counter to are extremely similar. And when you have two extremely similar like phrases in these types of questions, it's not possible that both of them can be correct. So you can essentially eliminate both of them knowing that none of those can be it. Treats equally. Now, treats equally. What is in my heart that treats equally with my mind? I don't think that works, right? Because treats equally references a specific detail, right? So it would be like, what is an idea in my heart that treats equally to an idea in my mind? And that's like also a very like poetic way of saying it. It's not literal. So I think corresponds with is the best thing to put here, even though treats equally could work. It's not as strong as corresponds with. So I'll use B. As used in line 68, clean most nearly means. Okay, let's go there. Look here, father said to his customer, and I looked. He held up an inkstick and rotated it in the light. See, it's the right hue, purple black, not brown or gray like the cheap brands you might find down the street. And listen to this. And I heard a sound as clean and pure as a small silver bell. The high pitched tone tells you that the suit is very fine, as smooth as the sliding banks of old rivers, and the scent, can you smell the balance of old strength and delicacy? The musical notes of the ink's perfume, expensive, and everyone who sees. Okay, yeah, it's essentially. I would say that clean here, right? The sound as clean and pure. So first, I there's like an and there. So I would assume that the same adjective isn't going to be used again and again unless it's like a similar word. So purity, it kind of resembles like pure itself talks about like an isolated tone, right? And clean, I guess perhaps it could mean the same thing, like something isolated, but it's a high pitched tone, and I think a high pitched tone would be different than the rest. Or yeah, it most likely is different than the rest. So if you look at the lines here, as used in line 68, clean most nearly means complete, skillful, distinct. See, distinct is literally almost exactly what I was trying to go for there, and upright. So I don't think you can really describe a sound as skillful or upright. I don't think that really works. Complete and distinct. Now, complete, I don't think you can describe a high pitched tone as complete because it's extremely unique. It's not a complete sound. It's a different sound. So distinct. I'm definitely going to go for that. Okay, so now that I've answered the rest of the questions, I'm going to go back to those two main idea questions that I said I would skip at the beginning and I'd come back to now that I've had a better understanding of the passage in its entirety. So, which choice best summarizes the passage? A character's arrival at her family's ink shop sparks fond memories of her favorite aunt. So, I guess it does literally, but I don't think the memories of the precious auntie are the main idea, or I don't think it's like a good summary. It only happens in like a portion, and that's really like precious auntie's ideas are used to clarify like the work that is being done by the entire family. So I don't think it's a good summary to say that. A character's surprise visit leads to a happy reunion at her family's ink shop. I guess it does, but the happy reunion portion is literally less than a third. I don't think it's a good summary as well. A character comes to understand that her father's ambitions while visiting. Okay, so with this one, I think it's definitely possible that it is true, but I think we'd be assuming here talking about ambitions, right? Where is it specifically mentioned that the father has always had an ambition for this ink shop? And like, I guess it's somewhat clear in the way that he describes the ink, but still it's an assumption. It's never explicitly stated. And it's not even implicitly stated hard enough that he has this ambition, and it's specifically her father's ambition for the ink shop. I don't think that's a good summary either, because that's more of an inference that you can make on that last passage than a summary of the entire thing. Uh, a character's visit to her family's ink shop deepens her appreciation. I think this is definitely it, right? Because all the details before, like first with the going into the shop and remembering all the details, right? And then the memory of Precious Auntie that clarifies this idea that what is being done here, right? Father's work of the ink stick is, I guess it's something that requires a lot of effort, and it's something that she appreciates, right? At the very end, it says, I was very proud to hear father speak of our family's ink this way. I think that's the most important detail here. That's the part that she really just mentioned specifically, that her that her appreciation has been deepened, I guess, or and that it exists now when it wasn't really evident before, and the details seem to be pushing us in that direction. So I'm definitely going with D here. A main theme of the passage is that family relationships should be nurtured. Again, that's like, of course, the passages somewhat talks about that, like implicitly that it's a good thing, but it's not explicitly stated, and it's definitely not the main theme of the passage. It happens in like a third of it. Quality is achieved through deliberate effort. Yeah, I would say so. As I talked about before, actually, exactly the way I talk about Precious Auntie's memories, or the memories of Precious Auntie, kind of relate to this, where she talks about how if something is really high quality, it requires a lot of effort. And the mention of quality in the father's description of the ink stick, I think that's an important detail there, linking that quality to effort. So yeah, that's something I'm definitely leaning towards. Hard work results in material compensation. There's no mention of material compensation, and the small mention that it does have when it talks about the ink is expensive, or actually it just says that it feels expensive. We don't actually know the price. Actually, it says well worth the high price, but there's no tell if this is actually selling a lot, if this is extremely popular. So we can't really say that. So creativity needs to be expressed concretely. Not really concretely. It doesn't really say that. It just says that it requires a lot of effort. It's not really mentioned, and there's no way that can be the main theme. That's like a portion of the memories of Precious Auntie's words, right? Yeah, so definitely B. Quality is achieved through deliberate effort. That's the only one where there's a proper link. I feel like the story flows to kind of show that idea. Okay, so I've just graded myself, and I was expecting to potentially have gotten one of these wrong, but I actually got all of them correct. So I guess every single one of my points analyzing was somewhat correct, and yeah, definitely take notes of what you and I thought differently. And yeah, to maximize your learning from this, you should be taking those notes and figuring out, or at least mentally thinking to yourself, how did he come up with that one detail that I didn't think about? Or what was a detail that I thought about that I didn't think about? Right. So I guess that's the only way to increase your ability to analyze. If you take this part seriously, right? The going into the passage and sifting through the details and to find that one specific detail that makes a question right or wrong, you actually increase your ability to do analysis, right? And if you get faster or you get better at analysis, you get faster naturally, right? Because this passage will seem extremely easy if you get good at analysis, and that's how the speed comes. So really focus on that and your speed will get faster, and overall just increase your ability to analyze. If there's one thing you should take away is just analysis is so important, and deep analysis is how you get better at SAT reading. So I have free SAT prep, but I actually only have one more spot left. So let me know if that's something you guys are interested. Also, let me know if this video was helpful for you and if you want to see another one. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you learned something today.